Let's talk about a team who coming into this season had expectations that were simply all over the place. A lot of people, they didn't know exactly what to expect from the Brooklyn Nets. A lot of people thought they would improve, and some people, they were out on Kyrie Irving. They actually thought that this team would be worse, and there's actually some people who still think that the Brooklyn Nets are in fact a worse team with Kyrie Irving. It sounds ridiculous until you look at the stats. They say numbers don't lie, but in some situations, I do think that they do. When somebody says numbers don't lie, I think it's a cop-out. I think it's a cop-out that has no context usually, because context is everything. For example, is one player better than another player just because they have more rings? It would be tough to tell you without context, but the numbers would have you to believe one thing. Now, let me provide you guys with some numbers, almost with no context. The Brooklyn Nets, when Kyrie Irving plays, they're 8-12. Without Kyrie Irving, they're 22-22. Right at 500. Draw your early conclusions if you have to about the Nets record with or without Kyrie Irving, but I think there's a much deeper story at hand. A story that goes much deeper than the record with or without Kyrie. It sounds easy to say, but you guys will understand it more in just a second. Let's look at what the Nets were doing last season, with D'Angelo Russell leading the way. But before we go any further, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You guys will not want to miss another GETLIKECOOP video. And that's facts. If you guys love NFL content, be sure to subscribe to my NFL channel. The link is in the description below. And be sure to follow me on IG, handle GETLIKECOOP. D'Lo, young ascending point guard on a young team that just turned everything around after going through one of the worst trades in NBA history. The Celtics, they got a haul of picks and made out like bandits. Danny Ainge, he left his way all the way to the NBA lottery. Back to D'Lo. D'Lo was the prototypical three-point shooting, facilitating point guard that so many teams covet in today's NBA. But the Nets, they didn't want him after making the playoffs. And for reasons that are entirely obvious, they went out, they got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, two of the most prolific scorers in the NBA currently, and possibly two of the most talented scorers that the game has ever seen. KD is simply prolific from behind the line. And then you add that in with how athletic and how talented offensively he is. He's just a cover that's pretty much impossible. You can't really stop him. You just kind of have to hope that he misses. I feel like Kyrie is the same way, in which you really just have to hope they miss their shot. Kyrie can get to any spot on the basketball court, and you know why. One of the most dangerous ball handlers in the league. Kyrie also has a natural ability as a playmaker that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. I think some people sleep on the effect that scoring can have when it goes to playmaking. Some players, they overpass the ball and they overpass into contested shots. I love pure point guards and I love pure passers, but at some point you have to be able to go out and get a bucket on the basketball floor. That's just the name of the game. Or else the defense, they just really won't respect you. This Brooklyn Nets season has been so up and down, and there have been so many talking points that it's honestly been a little hard to follow. But I have to think that the Brooklyn Nets knew exactly what they were getting themselves into when they acquired Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. This was a team with a vision, and this was a team that wanted to contend for a championship. You see, while the Nets were good with D'Angelo Russell, they were on a different timeline. With KD, with Kyrie Irving, now you're ready to compete. You want to talk about a big time contender when these two are healthy? Well, you got it. When you can get superstars in the NBA, you have to go out and you have to get them. It's not every day that these players become available. When you look at the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, this is about as open as the NBA has ever been and may be for some time before the next dynamic team comes along and takes over the NBA. Who knows? That team could be a lot closer to taking over than we know. So KD, Kyrie, what's the problem? But the problem is that these are two players that may care entirely too much what the media says at times. But I get it. If I was a basketball player, it would be hard to ignore. But sometimes you just have to. You just have to for the sake of the team. KD and Kyrie are now in one of the biggest media markets in the entire NBA. But I know this team will be good, but good might not be good enough, and they know it. Basketball teams are always looking to get better. That's the name of the game. It's improve until you can't anymore. Look at the Golden State Warriors. I know you guys probably are tired of me mentioning this team so much, but this team is kind of the gold standard for building a roster and improving year after year after year, and so you simply can't improve anymore. The Nets are 22-22 without Kyrie Irving, and that tells me one thing. It doesn't tell me that Kyrie is hurting the team. It tells me that this team has an absurd amount of talent on it, and these players, they need to learn how to play together with Kyrie, and Kyrie needs to learn how to play with these players. Hear me out. Remember LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. We have two guys top 5 at their position all time, and another who should be an easy Hall of Famer, at least in my opinion. When we look at Bosh, we look at the prototypical big man. He does everything they do and arguably better. You guys get my point. 3 players who helped to make up one of the best NBA teams of all time. But if you look at the Big Three's record in its first month together, you might be a little confused because it doesn't reflect that of one of the best teams to ever play. These things take time. I can't stress that enough when it comes to Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. This year was supposed to be a major experimental year until Kevin Durant came back. And the Nets, they're still currently 7th in the East despite everything that's went down. Remember earlier in the season when Kyrie Irving listed out teammates after a loss, and he said that he felt that it was glaring that the Nets needed 1 or 2 more pieces. I want to know if you guys thought that Kyrie was accurate in saying that, or should the Nets already have enough to contend right now when Kevin Durant returns? If the Nets were winning at the time, I surely don't think Kyrie says anything along those lines. And as I stated earlier, I do think that they are ready to contend with KD returning. And I do think that there is nothing wrong with wanting a team to get better, with the Nets wanting to get some more veterans and impact players, because it seems like Kyrie is on the same page as the GM, because now it looks like the Brooklyn Nets are trying to acquire a 3rd star for their team. Windhorse reports, I believe they have telegraphed they intend to use some of their young talent to acquire a 3rd star. Now we can get into a healthy debate about whether Caris LeVert is that 3rd star, and they make the decision that he is. But my feeling reading the tea leaves, paying attention to what Sean Marks has said, and also being aware of some conversations they had at the trade deadline, which was sticking the toe in the water on some things, I think they're going to swing for the fences whenever the season comes. They're going to have to potentially hire a coach that is going to help them do that. That last part is big because apparently the Brooklyn Nets soured on Kenny Atkinson, and that's the reason that he got fired. Kevin Durant, one of the major reasons he came to Brooklyn was him doing his research on Kenny Atkinson and liking everything that Kenny had going, from the offense, from his coaching style to the culture that was being built. Kevin Durant loved it all. But at the time of the firing, that was not the case. KD was quoted saying that the Nets must improve their habits and that they were not building the proper culture traits necessary for a title contender. Now, you guys can look at this as KD or Kyrie getting Kenny fired, but there have been no direct links that say that's actually what happened. What this seems like is it seems like the whole team was sort of on board with this firing. And you can also look at Kyrie Irving and try to paint him as the bad guy for everything that's gone on. As somebody that supports Kyrie, you have to understand what you're getting when you're getting Kyrie Irving. This is somebody that's going to be an emotional leader, somebody that wears their heart on their sleeve, doesn't exactly have a poker face, and that can be a very good thing, but also a bad thing in some instances, because you see how fans and media try to spin things so negatively at times. This is night and day from Kyrie's time with the Boston Celtics. The Nets have done nothing but talk glowingly about Kyrie, whereas Kyrie's comments with the Celtics in the past sort of created a rift in the locker room. but even the Celtics wish well for Kyrie. When we look at some of the players that the Nets could possibly get, I'm looking at guys like DeMar DeRozan, somebody who has been a fantastic #1 option, somebody who can be that third scorer and be possibly the best third scorer in the NBA. I'm looking at guys like Bradley Beal. I'm looking at guys like Buddy Hield. I'm looking at guys like Devin Booker, elite off-ball players that can do a little bit of everything when it comes to scoring the ball, to passing the ball. Whatever package the Nets put together, it should get a very good return, because Dinwiddie played like an all-star this season. You have Karis LeVert, who has all-star potential. You have Jared Allen, who's another guy with all-star potential. I actually think they're sleeping on exactly how good Jared Allen could be. I honestly think getting DeRozan to a point would almost be a little redundant, but he is a big time player. My thing is right now, what teams are looking to get rid of their stars? Are there really any stars that are in situations where they can't see themselves performing or getting better? The NBA is as open as it's been in recent history. If the Nets get the right piece to complement KD and Kyrie, it's hard to imagine how good this team would be. I want to know how many wins you think the Nets with just KD and Kyrie and their supporting cast right now get in the comments below. Be sure to click the video on the screen right now, guys. It's incredibly dope. Be sure to subscribe. Notice on. I'm GETLIKECOOP and I'm out.